And welcome to this episode of Season 4, the first episode of Season 4 of the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and often guests talk about digital topics, including the world of online communications and digital inclusion, in a show which was the brainchild of digital storyteller, the late John Popham, who we still miss and talk about and wish that he was around to take part in some of the things that are going on. So Sweyn, how are you and how's the weather been this week where you are?
I'm very well, and the weather has taken a distinctly autumnal turn. Last week we had bright sunshine, and along with lots of other places, the hottest day of the year. But not today. It's rainy and it's not too windy, so let's look on the bright side.
Okay, let's remind people where you are.
I'm in Kirkwall in Orkney.
Cool. And here in Birmingham, yes, it's also turned autumnal. In fact, I put the heating on this morning, which I was hoping not to do, but I've turned it off again and put an extra fleece on as a model for what we will encourage people to do to save the environment. But yeah, it's cool here. It has been lovely. It was a lovely month up to now, and yeah, so maybe we'll get more sunshine. I don't know, but we're just glad to have the weather and have the earth that we have at the moment. I've been at the Retrofit Reimagined Festival all weekend with colleagues talking about retrofitting houses and retrofitting retrofitting communities as well. Yeah, so
very interested to hear about that. That's what we all need to do everywhere.
There's a live stream, so I can send you a link to that. In fact, we can share it on the show if people would be interested in that. So, yeah, certainly happy. So we're glad to be back with Season 4 of the Dr. Tech Show. I think, Sweyn, when you and I started with this, we didn't think about the future and where we were going to be a few years down the line. And we certainly didn't think we'd be without John.
No.
So that was obviously a huge blow to us, but we were proud to carry on his legacy somewhat in this show, and we hope we've done him proud, and we hope that he would approve of what they kind of
I'm sure he would have lots of ideas about how we could be doing things better and different and so on, but we're doing our best. I've just noticed, by the way, that something's growing out of my head. It's actually a mirror frame.
Okay,
growing out of my head, so there we are.
Thanks for correcting
if
that.
I sit forward I can hide it.
Great stuff. So let's start with the show then, the usual way we do, talking about dates. So if you want to lead off on the dates that you've picked out, Sweyn, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, unusually for us, kind of unusually for us, we're going to start with a date that is in the past, and it was the date that everyone working in this field now needs to remember every single year, and it is the End Digital Poverty Day. On the 12th of September. This day is a UK nationwide initiative dedicated to raising awareness about the pressing issue of digital poverty, and it's led by the Digital Poverty Alliance, who we're very pleased to have such a good relationship with. Individuals and organizations were invited to join in the collective effort to work towards ending digital poverty and empowering people and communities. So the definition that the DPA, the Digital Poverty Alliance, uses for digital poverty is the inability to interact with the online world fully when, where, and how an individual needs to. So I'm actually going to play a short video. It's a minute long, and and here it comes.
The digital world is part of almost every aspect of our lives, but for many people, being offline isn't a choice, it's their reality. Accessing homework, job opportunities, or even finding cheaper bills are increasingly out of reach, leaving people choosing between data or dinner. Not only is digital a basic right, it's an essential utility, and access to it should be treated as such. A reliable connection and device are the first hurdle, but simply getting everyone online isn't enough. As technology becomes more complicated and more services move online, people need digital skills to live their lives. Accessing key services online, like universal credit or healthcare, should be simple, safe, and work for everyone when and where they need. At the Digital Poverty Alliance, we want to enable everyone to access the life-changing benefits of digital, We work across UK industry, government and charities to align approaches to tackling digital poverty. We all have a responsibility to help those left behind in the digital world. Join us, get involved and help make it happen.
Excellent.
So that is the video, and honestly, the Digital Poverty Day website is still a wonder to behold. And I just thought it'd be really good to start season 4 with an absolutely basic statement of what we're actually trying to work towards, which is ending digital poverty and promoting digital inclusion. So I recommend I've got a whole pile of stuff written down here about the day, but I actually think the best thing is just to let the video speak for itself, really, because there's a whole lot of ideas about how you can get involved in the day, but it's not just for a day. All the suggestions on this webpage are applicable throughout the year. So that is that. And the Digital Poverty Alliance it's relatively new. I think it's probably less than 2 years old.
Something like that, yeah.
And it's done a fantastic job of just knitting together all the various strands and seeing their big meetup in London on the 12th of September, and seeing how they react to big reports that come out of the House of Lords, how they encourage organizations to work together and show each other what their niche in the digital kind of ecosystem is. They're doing a really, really good job of knitting it all together and making it visible and marketing the whole thing so that people can plug in behind them with what they're actually doing. So
absolutely,
more power to them.
And we've been delighted to have Digital Poverty Alliance representatives on the show. Ciara Allman, Paul Finnis, Freddie Queck have all been on the show, and and Paul Russell. And we'd be delighted to have more representatives of the Digital Poverty Alliance on show, whenever they want to join us. In fact, Sweyn, I don't know if I told you, but I was at the gala reception for
you? Oh, good for you.
In London. Yes.
Good for you.
And Freddie was there, and also Emma Weston, who's a supporter of the Digital Unite.
Had it not been for the Orkney Science Festival, which I'll come to in a minute, I would have been tempted to go to that.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was really excellent. They had it at the London Canal Museum, which I've never been to before.
Right.
Fascinating little museum in somewhere in London. I'm not familiar with the area, but it was really, I can highly recommend it. Lots of interesting things to see. And very good food they supplied. So people were fed and watered, and then had some very good speeches, including from the sponsor of the Digital Poverty Alliance, Currys. There was a representative there from Currys, and also a representative spoke from Community Tech Aid, which is one of the local organizations that kind of refurbishes devices and makes them available to people locally. So they had like all the aspects of the digital poverty there, and they had a silent auction or a raffle. And just generally, and they had been out during the day shaking buckets in 4 locations, I think, in the UK, to raise the profile and try and raise money for the Digital Poverty Alliance, because all these organizations need funding. But it was great to be with fellow travelers face to face for a change in London for the Digital Poverty Alliance gala reception. And in fact, one of our other old friends was there, Casper Kennerdale, who introduced somebody from Community Tech Aid. So that person, Stephanie, I hope will join us on the show sometime in the not too distant future. So yeah, Digital Poverty Alliance, great work. Keep it up. We salute you and support everything that you do.
Absolutely. So moving on from that to another thing that I think John would be fully behind and celebrate. Although it's not something that I knew too much about until I think we featured this last year or the year before. But it's the Oddfellows organization, which is a membership organization, and it exists to hold social events to bring people together. It's got branches all over the UK. I think it costs about £25 a year to join, and for that you get access to all the things that are going on. No doubt there's various marketing of services and products behind it as well. But September is the month that they designate Friendship Month, and they've actually been in existence for over 200 years. I'd love to find out the history of the organization, and they basically say that they bring people together to enjoy the brighter side of life. And it kind of reminds me of John's saying that what people really want to do is chat. What people really want to do is get together and chat. And most events, when you boil them down, are just an excuse for people to get together and chat. Anyway, friendship is at the very heart of the Oddfellows organization, and every September they get together to highlight how important it is to have friends around you that not only make you laugh, but also have your back. Loneliness is a growing problem in the UK. More than 9 million people of all ages say they are lonely either often or always. That's according to research by the Co-op and British Red Cross. Friendship Month is one way in which we can play our part in bringing communities closer together, providing easy ways for people of all ages to socialise by hosting fun events and activities nationwide. Last year, they hosted over 170 events up and down the country, everything from fun-filled tea parties and lunches to friendship walks and quiz nights. You can search for what's going on this year on the Oddfellows website. And I mean, we all know how daunting those first steps to expanding your social circle can be, but if you're feeling in need of a little confidence boost, check out their top tips for making friends by downloading the brand new Guide to Making Friends on the Oddfellows website. Now, I love this. I'm not it could come across as quite cheesy, but I think it's absolutely fabulous.
It's great.
So that's Friendship Week, as designated by Oddfellows, a 200-year-old social organization. So there we go. And that concludes our days. So I think I'm going to hand over to you for the event that you have.
I managed to pick out an event. There's no shortage of events, as we know, but just topical events can sometimes elude us. But today I managed to find one that the SCVO, the Scottish Council of Voluntary Organisations, is organising an introduction to digital inclusion, which might sound very basic, but lots of people still don't know what it is. And this is for voluntary organisations, so it's particularly apposite for them. On Thursday, the 5th of October, which is a few weeks away, so still time to book a place on it. And it's basically explaining, as we've said earlier with the DPA's explanation, there's various explanations. This one says that digital inclusion is about making sure people have the opportunity to be online and have the skills to use digital tools. With an estimated 800,000 people in Scotland having no digital skills, it's more important than ever to know how to help the people that need it. So this is an introduction to digital inclusion, and they will show people how and why digital inclusion is important, and how your organization can easily build capacity and capability to support your service users to make better use of your online services. So that sounds like one for all the voluntary organization people who are listening to us, and others as well. I mean, I think, this is the kind of thing where you'd learn something, even if you weren't involved in an organization. So yeah, highly recommend that one. SCVO events are always well worth attending.
They sure are. That's online, and the booking information is on the website, which we'll share in the description to this video on YouTube.
Yes, I forgot to put the link in.
I found it.
Sweyn.
I found it.
Excellent. Well done. Can't fool you.
What's Google for? What is Google
Absolutely. Well, no, let's not get into that. Speaking of events, though, I believe you've been involved with an event recently.
Yes, 2 events really. The Orkney International Science Festival, as usual, ran from the first Thursday of September for 7 days, and then immediately after that, there's the 2-day Orkney Aviation Festival. A bewildering variety of events, some of which we live streamed, many of which we were trying to edit the live stream of to make the quality of it better. If you're interested in anything about that whatsoever, I'll put the link again in the description for the program. But the website is oisf.org, and if you go to the program section there and you see events that you like the look of, you might be lucky, and there might be further down on each event page there will be a YouTube embedded, which means you can watch the recording of the event. And that our videos now go back at least 3 years. We did 2 years entirely online. In fact, 4 years. This is the 4th year we've done this. 2020 and 2021 festivals were entirely online using Zoom and YouTube. And then last year in 2022, we came back to being in person, but we live streamed a few events last year as well. And this year we've tried to live stream a few more. We are doing whatever is humanly possible to get our stuff online. One thing we have to look at really quite urgently now is making our videos more accessible by subtitles and so on, because we haven't done that yet, which is a failing. But apart from that, there's lots and lots of stuff. Either just search for Orkney International Science Festival on YouTube and just scroll through the YouTubes, or probably better is to go to the program on the oisf.org website and get the context for each of the events as well. Also, the link there will be to the best quality recording we have, not to the one that was taken on the day. And you might be unlucky in YouTube and find one that's awful. Some of them were awful.
And were there any particular highlights for you? I mean, every year you do this now, and I'm charmed by what I can see. Makes me want to come to Orkney, which I hope is part of the
Next
reason
year.
for running it. Yeah, hopefully next year. Yeah. So were there any particular standout
Highlights?
things that you thought of this
Oh
year?
my goodness!
Things that come to mind.
So many things. There was a great focus on renewable energy and carbon reduction, particularly marine renewable energy. There was some fantastic music. A flautist called Eddie the flautist comes every year with music he's composed that's been inspired usually by astronomy or astrophysics, and he talks about it, and there's performances of that. There was a wonderful installation we had the first time in Scotland, a project funded by the UK Research Council thing, which was a 6 meter across model of the sun, inflated, which was hung in the in the crossing of the St Magnus Cathedral. So that was amazing as well. There's also a whole infrastructure came with that, a lot of interpretation, a lot of stuff. So the themes this year were the sun, and there was a mathematical and dance theme as well. But there's so much going on, it's impossible to remember what the themes are. I should have queued up a picture of the sun in the cathedral, but I haven't done that.
Maybe we could see that the next time, because I think people would.
If you go to the
that.
Orkney International Science Festival Facebook page, you'll see nothing else but pictures of the sun.
Fantastic. So on renewable energy, what were the recommendations? What were the kind of
not so much recommendations as just kind of updates on how the technology is moving forward. Staggering size of some of the offshore wind turbines that there are now. Good developments in tidal flow devices, which are still pretty much in research and development phase, but they are coming to be nearly commercial. Just the enormous size of these offshore wind turbines, which can be, I think I'm going to say, as tall as the Eiffel Tower.
Wow.
I think the newest ones are even bigger than that. I can't remember what the comparator is. But of course, these go way off, miles and miles offshore, where they're barely visible. Father Ted, Father Dougal, big and far away, close. And, you can hardly see them. Even if the weather's good enough to see them at all, they look tiny on the horizon. So I think it's all been so many things. I couldn't do a better summary of the week than that.
No, so we recommend everybody to check up the website. I'll certainly be doing that. And I just have a picture in my mind's eye of Orkney now that I can't get rid of. So I'm really happy to support it and encourage other people to get involved as well. So you mentioned an aviation festival then, straight after.
Straight after, no rest. This year that consisted of 3 Zoom formatted events. So it was people from who were all over the UK joining by Zoom, giving updates on a project, an initiative called the Sustainable Aviation Test Environment, which is located at Kirkwall Airport. So that is a test environment, as it says, which allows you, if you have a new sustainable aircraft or drone or something like that, it gives you the opportunity to test it in a real airport environment instead of just in a field somewhere in the good weather. You can test it year round in an airport, and there are all sorts of projects ongoing there. I don't know, my own views on sustainable aviation are ambiguous at best, but there are some interesting there are some interesting initiatives to do with cargo delivery in remote and rural areas, which if you can get kind of, did I say 70 tons? It can't be 70 tons, 70 kilograms on a drone. You can probably do away with post vans, and you don't have to keep the roads up in, you know, you don't have to follow the roads and so on and so on. So, you know, subject to a few sanity, carbon use calculations, and subject to it becoming affordable, there are things there that are really interesting. Less interesting to me are the kind of 2 to 9 seat local or regional aircraft, which some companies are trying to develop. Don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm yet to be convinced. Also, there was a talk in person, which we've recorded but not released yet, on Friday night, which was celebrating the well, it's a local hero, and in the case, it's kind of hero of aviation, Captain Ted Fresson, who pioneered the very first airmail flight in the 30s between Inverness and Kirkwall in Orkney, and that is both the first and also the longest running continuous airmail service in, as far as we know, the world. Possibly there might be 1 or 2 in North America, which are a little bit older, but so that was a talk by his son about his recollections of all that stuff.
Wow.
Happening.
Yeah, all good. Great. So again, some available online?
They're all of it. They're the Science Festival, the Orkney International Science Festival YouTube channel hosts all the aviation festival events.
Oh, okay.
As well.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, that's very nice. Okay, so again, something we can recommend to our readers and listeners, yeah, for ongoing investigations. Okay, let's go on to our stories that we found over the last while. And do you want to speak to this first one?
I can do. Let me share it first. It's what is it? LinkedIn post by Helen Olsen Bedford, who's the publisher of the UKauthority.com magazine and website. And it's about the Scottish government backing digital inclusion in mental health and housing. And the story is just a good news story about funding, really, I suppose. £600,000 the Scottish government has shared out among 13 projects. And it's the first of a digital inclusion programme, and this has an initial focus on mental health and housing. The Cabinet Secretary for NHS Recovery, Health and Social Care, who's called Michael Matheson, that's the Scottish Minister for Health, said supporting people to feel more digitally confident so that they can access the services they need online is absolutely vital and is one of our long-standing commitments. This programme will see models tested that will help so many people gain the skills they need to improve their own health and know how to access the support that is available to them. There are 13 funded projects. I'm not going to read through them all, but most of them have received about £50,000. And it's things like working with young people at risk of homelessness, working with older people in supported living accommodation in rural areas, digital inclusion among homeless people, digital drop-ins for people with disabilities or long-term health conditions in Wester Hailes in Edinburgh, and so on and so on and so on. All of it. I can't see any in the Scottish Islands. That's disappointing. But apart from that, it's brilliant. So that's that.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's great to see, like, lots of these I'm presuming most of these are voluntary organizations who are being supported to provide these services, and they will have contact with the people who need the help. So
I think it's a mixture of voluntary organizations and what are called regulated social housing providers.
Okay, yeah.
Housing associations.
Yeah.
So again, right up John Street. John Popham
absolutely.
was doing this almost before housing associations were invented, it seems.
That's what it feels like, yeah. So good to see those kind of things continuing on. So the next story is from a story about Digital Unite, who are talking about 3 simple things any business can do to help tackle digital exclusion. And again, this is from a LinkedIn post by Digital Unite themselves. So they're saying that one of the 3 things are, firstly, to sign up for our employee volunteering course, and they offer employee volunteering training to encourage people to become digital champions. And we've talked to Emma about this in the past and how successful it is, because people in companies often have digital skills and are happy to share them with other people, and it's more it's more practical use of volunteer time, I think, from a business than maybe some of the traditional paint a fence.
I think it gives a structure.
Volunteering,
focuses really on what people are likely to be asked to do, so that they're in a better position. That their training course that organizations can sign up to, that first point in that LinkedIn post there, is called Inspire. And I've just got the frequently asked questions about that program, and it's all about enabling your employees to be effective digital volunteers and to put a bit of structure in it. And that is Digital Unite's core thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's what they're set up to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I saw Emma at the Digital Poverty Alliance gala reception, she was sharing some more news with me about forthcoming programs that they're going to be launching. So it'll be great to hear more about what, when they do launch new programs, we'll be able to tell people about them and they'll be able to benefit from them. So good on Digital Unite, and we encourage them people to get involved with them. The second simple thing any business can do to help tackle digital exclusion, was to get involved with Future.now, which is a coalition of industry leaders focused on closing the digital skills gap at work. And again, Sweyn has the website up on the LinkedIn page.
LinkedIn page,
yeah. So if I just read the text of the about page.
Pardon me. Yes.
Sweyn, it's a coalition of industry leaders with a common mission of closing the digital skills gap for working age adults. And it reminds us that in the UK, 11.8 million adults, 1 in 3 of the workforce, still lack the essential digital skills for work. Our workforce is digitally underpowered, and this skills gap is holding us all back. It says it threatens personal prosperity and is damaging the UK's productivity and competitiveness. So they're coordinating industry action to equip people with the essential digital skills they need, helping businesses to understand the workforce that doesn't have digital skills. And their mission is fundamental to personal prosperity, business recovery, and national productivity, all things that we can totally agree with. They're established in 2019, Future.now, and they now have almost 200 members, convening the reach and influence of industry leaders such as Accenture, BT, Good Things Foundation, Lloyds Banking Group, Nominet, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Salesforce, who all sit on their board. So they have a reach of millions and can have an exponential impact. So again, like the Digital Poverty Alliance, this is an organization that we encourage people who care about digital inclusion and digital skills to get involved in and support.
This one's very much focused on skills for work, and it's a coalition of employers. Whereas, and this is the great thing, there are these complementary initiatives now.
Yes.
With each of them recognizing the expertise and the territory of the others.
Yeah.
And it's great to see them all working together under a few well-known banners.
Yeah.
And look at what the third thing is that they would like us to do. It is attend or get yourselves involved in the Digital Poverty Alliance's Digital Poverty Day on the 12th of September. Yeah. Well, we've covered that. So we'll...
Great to see. Good to see those organizations kind of working together, not trying to compete with each other for resources, but kind of work together to share the activity that each other is up to, and that supports the end result of ending digital poverty and ending digital exclusion. So well done all of everyone involved in those. And then we move on to a story from picked up from a LinkedIn story about the Good Things Foundation highlighting an opinion piece in The Guardian, which was called The Guardian View on the Digital Divide, a growing problem that must be taken seriously. So Sweyn, do you want to read more from this?
Yeah, I mean, this is just an excellent an excellent piece from in the Guardian, who have obviously noticed all the activity around digital inclusion or digital exclusion, and have decided to write an editorial about it. And good on the Good Things Foundation, who's another organisation with a bit of a longer pedigree, a bit of a wider remit perhaps than many, but still working away in the same territory. Good on the Good Things Foundation for picking this up. So it says, from GP appointments to railway tickets to cashless parking, key services in the UK are being delivered digitally. And for many, the convenience is a tangible benefit. But, and we're always on about this on this programme, there are appreciable downsides for the millions of people who find it difficult to carry out basic day-to-day functions in a world that assumes everyone is comfortable online. In the name of progress, the danger is that a wall is erected between wider society and a group that tends to live outside England's southeast and be older, poorer, and more vulnerable. So that's the Guardian trying to characterize in terms of demographic and geography where they believe higher proportions of digitally excluded people are. And I guess that's true, but I think we have to kind of admit that there are people who struggle with digital in all areas, even those where the rates are a bit less. There's lots of good information. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It refers to the House of Lords report that we featured in the last series. It touches on the potential impact of artificial intelligence, possibly making all this worse. And it says the House of Lords report, should be required reading for ministers. It rightly argues for better social tariffs, that's lower cost broadband and mobile phone packages for those who struggle to afford the standard rates, to allow poorer people to gain access to the internet. And it says that broadband coverage is not what it should be. Well, that's an old refrain. Perhaps the most significant contribution of the House of Lords report is in exposing the limitations of seeing the world wholly through a desiccated cost-benefit analysis. Businesses and government cannot just keep on pushing the process of administering services to use on pushing the administration of their services onto users. So online banking, you have to do a lot more of the task yourself than you do if you just go into a bank with a checkbook and want to draw out some cash. Every year, it seems that Britain is, by design, slowly isolating technically less adept groups. Being unable to claim benefits or to speak to customer services because of a lack of computing know-how is unjust. And on the grounds of fairness and inclusion, it cannot be allowed to continue. Well, that's saying in the same words what the Digital Poverty Alliance is saying about the need, the basic right for people to be able to access stuff when, how, and whatever else they need to. So it's great to see that a national newspaper being so unequivocal in their description of all that and picking up on the House of Lords report and publicising it. But that's a few weeks ago now, but we've got a backlog of things to present.
I think it's very valid, and it's not just enough to encourage people to improve their digital skills. It's also important for services to recognise that not everybody has or wants to have better digital skills, but they still want to have services, and they deserve to have them. So they need to not leave people out and not design services that do exclude people. I mean, another example is the proposed closure of so many in train stations, so many offices where people can go and ask questions. Exactly. I mean, they're saying they'll compensate by having staff around who can answer questions. But I'm sorry, that means you searching for somebody who can answer your question instead of going to a place where you know that people are there to answer your questions. And people in the train stations I go to are still queuing up because they want to speak to a person, and that's not going to change. I don't, and COVID have made that worse. People wanted to go back to speaking to people.
I mean, that's been, in my opinion, that's just been handled so dreadfully badly, the whole idea. I mean, I can imagine ways where you could close some ticket offices and increase the number of people available to answer questions, but you'd need to share an awful lot of details about it. You need to design it, co-design it with the people affected. You need to probably accept that you can't save 100% of the money that you might by closing ticket offices. You might need to invest it in other ways of being available. I can imagine ways of doing it, but certainly this current proposal is completely wrong. And I think it'll be a while before the public will take seriously even an improved idea. That's the problem when these things are half thought through and imposed. It delays progress in other areas that you could possibly do, because anything involving ticket offices now will be politically charged in a way that it needn't have been if it had been done properly in the first place.
Yeah. The other thing that, of course, jumps out from this article in The Guardian was that Citizens Advice said 1 million people disconnected their broadband in the last year because they couldn't afford it. So the picture we saw in the DPA video about people choosing between data and dinner is true. You know, people are choosing or having to choose not to have broadband because they can't afford it. And that's just not right. So we need to, you know, address that as well. So, you know, the article says trying to lower household bills these days requires a higher level of technical skills as customer service. You've said that, you know, banks and energy companies replaced with chat functions. They're assuming a level of skill that people don't have, and they're not addressing enough the skill building, and they're not also, thirdly, making the services available offline so that people can have choices. So, okay, must do better.
Must do better. But luckily, the Guardian's on the warpath. So
good,
surely my progress must now be made.
Join the good fight.
Okay, this next story is a bit of fun. I think it's about. I nearly didn't include it, but it's at the other end of the scale. It's about communication using thought alone. How you know. Unbabel unveils an AI project to give us superhuman capabilities. Now, it's a very long article, so I've extracted a bit to try and explain what it's all about. So it begins, sitting in a meeting room at a startup office in Lisbon, I silently typed a question only the person opposite would know the answer to. What kind of coffee had I asked for when I'd arrived at the office? A short moment later, even without moving or opening his mouth, the reply came back via a text message. You had an Americano. So basically, this company has developed a method of looking at interfacing your brain into a communication interface. You have your limbic system, you have your neocortex, but they're evolved over millions of years and they're separate systems. What we're starting to see is almost the creation of the uber cortex, which we think is going to be AI powered, and it's going to be existing outside of your biological brain, said Pedro of Unbabel. And on and on and on. Put simply, now I don't know how simple you might think this might be, but this is the attempt to put it simply. The system measures how the wearer of a device would react when thinking of a word. So it's looking at your brain using electromyography, which is basically reading brainwave patterns. So the system measures you when you're thinking of certain things and then builds up a kind of knowledge base of those patterns, so that when those patterns arise and are detected by the system, they can then say, this is what you're thinking about. Americano. I don't know. Anyway, it's quite a technical article, but I just thought it was a bit of fun, looking probably quite a few years ahead until that sort of thing, if ever, is actually available to the likes of you and me. So there we are.
Okay, great. I actually thought you were going to refer to the previous article about the Fairphone release, because
I missed that one.
Yeah. No,
yes.
So
that's a more sensible article, right? I don't have a link to it just in my. I've missed that one out. So let me just find that in the document. The so-called script. Yes, this one is another LinkedIn post, and I've shared it in the wrong window, so I'll put it up there. And this time it's about the phone that's called a Fairphone, which is basically trying to be as reusable, well, first of all, as long-lasting and as maintainable and as avoid waste, electronic waste as far as possible. And again, it's a video. And I can't believe I've forgotten to put the link into this video. Here it is. Here it is. We're going to play a video again.
So much for all the trouble in the world. This is something different that just came in.
Dear world.
Stop scrolling for a minute.
We have to ask you something.
Do you really need a new...
Oh yeah, sorry.
We'll get back to that.
We're Fairphone,
No, not the company.
the people who buy their stuff.
This is one of those underdog stories that will
Blow your mind.
It all started with a Dutch fella.
Hi, I'm Bas.
He wanted to fix his kid's busted Nintendo.
And it turns out, most of our tag gadgets are seriously screwed up.
I think opening up something is the first step towards understanding something.
So Bus realized
If you can't open it, you don't own it.
So now what?
You can't just change the entire tech industry from the inside, right?
Well, Bus and his crew said,
Hold my beer.
And boom!
Fairphone asked,
Who's with us?
25,000 of us said, Hell yeah! The first Fairphone was born in 2013 as a crowdfunding campaign.
Fairphone 1 was just the beginning.
We then saw the world's first modular phone.
Living wage bonuses for factory workers.
better conditions for miners.
E-waste rescue missions.
And yeah,
It wasn't always smooth sailing, but we didn't give up. Is it really too much to ask to let us prepare our own stuff?
Look, the point is, it was supposed to be impossible.
turns out it's only impossible until someone goes out and does it.
Fairphone 1.
2,
3,
4.
Fairphone really did all that.
because we pushed for it and cared. And now, 10 plus years,
and so many milestones later, we're still rewriting the rules of the game.
so alright.
Back to the question.
Do you really need a new phone?
No, we're serious. The most sustainable phone is the one in your pocket.
So just keep yours going for as long as possible.
Fair phones are just made differently.
They're actual proof that change is possible.
That fair is possible.
It's in the name, you know.
Fairphone is freedom.
So yeah, the grass really is greener on this side.
Come and join us and change the game.
Love?
Fairphones across the world.
Hola, mi nombre es Susana, soy súper fan de Fairphone desde hace mucho tiempo. Tuve un Fairphone One en el año 2014, pero como Fairphone no entrega en Colombia, se lo encargué a una persona que en ese momento estaba en Holanda.
So there we are. Fairphone.
Wow.
A phone, but one that lasts longer and uses less carbon and other resources.
Oh, great. That sign, if you can't open it, it's not yours.
Yes.
That's very telling, isn't it?
Yes.
Mm.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No. I'm in a total mess now. So say something. Pauline, say something quick.
Fairphones. We'd love someone to come on the program who has used a Fairphone or would like to use one and know something more about them. So we have can have a chat about the actual practicals of it, because it's great to see the video that's been made, but even better if we can talk to somebody about it. So if anybody is listening and has some knowledge of that, please get in touch with us so we can.
I'm seriously tempted. I mean, the thing about the LinkedIn post from Julie Winard, I think it was, who's from a company called Haynard. She was saying, this is why I bought a Fairphone 3 about 5 years ago, meaning the video. She hasn't had to even replace anything yet, but she can when needed. And it's about keeping it going. The most sustainable phone you can have is the one already in your pocket. And that's just so true. It's like what you were mentioning right at the beginning, having been to an event talking about retrofitting homes. The cheapest energy that we use is the energy that we don't use.
Yeah.
And retrofitting with insulation and with more efficient heating systems and all that sort of thing, it's trying to reduce your demand for energy. It's exactly the same things apply to gizmos.
So Julie is not she doesn't work for Fairphone. She just has used one. Yeah.
Yes.
She's someone you know.
No, I just
Okay.
spotted this on LinkedIn in my feed. She's someone who's had a Fairphone 3 for about 5 years. And
Okay.
I've also noticed, although I can't find them now, some really good reviews of the Fairphone 5. I remember the reviews of the Fairphone 3 at the time were saying, yes, it's a phone. It kind of works, but it's kind of not quite what you'd maybe expect from a phone. But the reviews of Fairphone 5 are very much more positive, and they seem to have kept their approach, but come closer to kind of the leading Android and iOS phones in capabilities. So we'll see. I'd like to get my hands on one just to try it out.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to give us one to test, as John used to sometimes request items for testing, we'd be very glad to have a look at that. So thanks for that, Sweyn, and the video was very very persuasive as well. So well done. Okay, so we're down to the last couple of stories. And the next one is about home tech support, and this is something that we have mixed thoughts about. The headline is how to remotely troubleshoot your relative's computer. So it's from PC Mag. So it's basically telling people how, if you're the designated tech person in your family,
I love that.
group,
I love that. The designated tech person in your family. How many of us feel
you know about this stuff? They say to us with a big grin. This is how to access a computer from afar, Mac or PC, see what's going on. So like, while we think it's helpful to have information, if you are the designated tech person, to help your friends and family, we advise caution for people who aren't, don't have friends who can support them like this, to allow other people to have access to your computer. We're not recommending it just willy-nilly. It's very much proceed with caution.
I would go as far as this as to say, never let anyone have access to your computer unless you A, know them very well indeed, and B, fully understand what they're trying to do for you. If you have any doubt, do not allow anybody remote access to your computer. Certainly not somebody who phones you up out of the blue. Certainly not some company that claims to be brilliant at doing stuff, but you don't really know what they're up to. If you have a problem and you've asked for advice from either from a relative or from a volunteer working for the likes of AbilityNet or whatever, then by all means, but never, ever, 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 ever allow people into your computer in this way unless you're absolutely confident that they're not trying to scam you or cause you harm in some way.
So why, just briefly, can you say why, Sweyn, you advise against people doing that?
Well, because the way this works is you open up a way of accessing your computer from somewhere else on the internet. So rather than somebody having to be sitting next to you and typing in your keyboard, this sort of facility gives helpful people who aren't in the same building, town, or country as you the ability to be as if they're sitting there typing on your keyboard. Now, that's great if it's somebody that you trust and somebody that knows what they're doing. If it's somebody that's just phoned you up with promise of a lot of money from some foreign prince or something like that, or if it's somebody phoning you up claiming to be Microsoft support and noticing that you have a problem with your computer, any of these scams, never, ever, ever go there, because what you're doing is you're actually letting that person into your computer as if they are you. All your if you stored passwords, they'll have access to that. If you stored any sort of private information, they'll have access to that. It's a useful tool for people who really are genuine, and who are trying to help, but it's also a useful tool for criminals and scammers. So it's really important when this stuff is highlighted. And this is an excellent thing. This is how Jamie Robson, who we had on a few months ago now, AbilityNet volunteer. AbilityNet? Is that the way it's saying? Yeah. This is how they operate their remote support service. But it's also how those annoying people who phone you up and claim to be Microsoft support and claim to have noticed that you've got a problem on your computer and claim to be able to fix it for you if you just let them in. Then they get in and they start stealing information or cash from you. It's the same technology as usual. There's a good use of it, and there's a it's a criminal or bad use of it. And it's just really important to be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we say, only if you trust somebody.
Yeah, it's
If
great.
you do,
And I mean, it's great. It's certainly from the point of view of the family member who is the designated tech person in the family, it's far better to be able to type in the thing that you're trying to explain down the phone for your relative to type in. It's far better if you can do it yourself. Far easier to help your relative rather than relying on them to listen to what you're saying and get capital letters and numbers and all. Oh, where's the return key or anything that, you know, all the usual stuff, which, you know, we've got to be patient about. People are at different levels of knowledge about things, but if you're trying to quickly help someone, this is a very efficient way to do it. Equally, people who are offering to help their relatives should be careful. They shouldn't just go in and change stuff willy-nilly, because they might have effects that solve the immediate problem but cause other problems for other things that your relatives using the equipment for. So again, just go gently and be sure what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Sorry, that's a terrible rant. What a rant.
Very wise. But you've obviously been there and seen it happen.
Yeah, I've heard. I've luckily never. I don't think I've ever been involved in a situation where there's been an aftermath of this, but I've certainly heard lots of horrific stories about things being completely. Lots of money being stolen. That's on the criminal side, and equally on the over-enthusiastic side, you know, people doing things that they think is helpful, but actually causes lots of other problems and leaves computers very, very much more difficult to use afterwards. So just a bit of common sense, a bit of caution, a bit of step-by-step, both in the decision whether or not to let somebody do this, and also on the part of the tech person who's giving the advice. Just be careful what you do, because you can easily change things that once you've gone off the line, your relative will struggle with.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got two more stories before we close for today. Yeah, I added a couple more at the end.
We'll get into the swing of things by next week.
We will.
Okay,
we were a bit so this one is the professional body for IT signs a new agreement to fight digital poverty, and this is the British Computer Society. And we've had Freddie Queck on from the Digital Divide subgroup of the British Computer Society. But this is the whole of the BCS signing a new agreement to fight digital poverty with the Digital Poverty Alliance, who we mentioned at the first story that we had here today. And they've signed a memorandum of understanding with the joint aim of ending digital poverty in the UK by 2030. So it's great to see the trade body for IT signing an agreement with the body that's kind of bringing all the other organizations together. So it's I think it has a good chance of success. The BCA's president, Gillian Arnold, said technology professionals know it's vital for everyone to have access to digital skills they need to function fully in our society. Most aspects of our lives, from jobs to accessing benefits to shopping, are now conducted online, and those who can't upskill in technology risk becoming excluded from society. So they say the DPA and BCS share the same vision to end digital poverty, and it's great we'll be working together closely on this issue. And then the interim CEO of the Digital Poverty Alliance, Elizabeth Anderson, said, "We are excited to partner with BCS, two charities working together in order to combine our expertise and enhance each other's calls on government, industry and community efforts to advance digital inclusion, sharing a common goal of ending digital poverty by 2030. And this partnership will support the actions outlined in our recently launched National Delivery Plan." And we've referred to that previously on this show. And there's a long article giving lots of information about, the data that we know, but 11 million people in the UK being digitally excluded. So it contains useful information as well as, registering the new partnership. But it's great to see professionals and those who kind of have the campaigning arm working together. Are you still a member of the BCS, Sweyn?
I've never been a member of the BCS. It's one of my lifelong omissions. I was, I suppose, a member of Socketim, the Society of IT Management, which is a kind of public sector trade body for IT and digital people. But No, I think I could probably have joined the BCS, but I've never quite ever got around to it. So
Okay.
might
Well, I mean,
have time
they
yet.
do have lots of members, and
They do, and then they are the absolute
active,
premier,
yeah.
the oldest and the premier body. It's a professional organization, a bit like the various institutes of engineering. It's a similar body to that, that people in the hardware and software and general computers, computing and digital. It's the widest, biggest grouping of those people. And it's great that DPA are going. That's the great thing about DPA. They're going at that level.
Yeah.
Join everything together with memorandums and plans and all sorts of stuff, and it's just great to see.
Yeah, and the BCS has lots of regional networks and niche groups, specialist groups of bringing particular work in particular fields in computers together. So, they cut across the whole swathe of technology, so they can meet people at all levels and encourage them in this way.
They do a lot within the industry, in the kind of equality space, like women and ethnic minorities, and making sure that those, trying to help to make sure that there's proper representation at all levels in the industry. They've been very strong on that over the years.
Yeah, so good on them, and we salute them and encourage people to get involved. So our last story is echoes some of the stuff we've already been talking about, but it was in publictechnology.net, and I picked it up again to Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it now, and the title is "No Excuse for Inaction: Is Government Doing Enough to Tackle Digital Exclusion?" And this refers to the report that we referred to earlier in the show, and also at the end of the last season's show with Emma Weston about the parliamentary report that went to the House of Lords, reminding us again, fully 1.7 million households have no mobile or broadband internet at home. Up to 1 million people have cut back or cancelled internet packages in the past year as cost of living challenges bite. About 2.4 million people are unable to complete a single basic task to get online, such as opening a web browser. An internet browser, over 5 million unemployed adults cannot complete essential digital work tasks. Basic digital skills are set to become the UK's largest skills gap by 2030, and this all has profound consequences for individual well-being and multi-billion pound implications for UK productivity, economic growth, public health, levelling up, education, and net zero objectives. So, as I say, it refers to the report published in June by the House of Lords Communication and Digital Committee, calling on ministers to urgently publish a new digital inclusion plan, the ambitions of which should be delivered by, in quotes, a new cross-government unit based in the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology with direct input from Number 10. And in that report, peers recommended that the strategy should focus on 5 core areas: helping with the cost of living, investing in basic digital skills, supporting community inclusion hubs, enabling smaller and local telecommunications providers to better compete with larger rivals, and ensuring that digitally excluded groups are not further marginalized by the use of algorithms in public services. So this all kind of echoes things we've talked about on the show for several seasons now, Sweyn. So it's great to see all that coming together in one document. And this is new. This was news to me. The committee set a deadline of the 20th of September. So that's 2 days away, by which it asks government to complete and publish a detailed response to the report. I haven't seen anything. I don't know if you have.
I haven't. I'll be watching the news on Wednesday with anticipation.
Yes, indeed.
I think that the UK government is a bit behind the Scottish and Welsh governments in this regard, because both of those devolved governments have gone quite a long way towards having these bits and pieces that the House of Lords is now calling for, quite a long way down the road of having those bits and pieces in place. And I think, as can be the case, I think England, relying on the UK government as they do, is probably not quite as far on, even with the planning side for this, or just the problem definition side. There's lots of activity, but the kind of getting everything on a kind of planned and effective basis. I think, as far as the government's concerned, I mean, there's a lot in the third sector. We've got all these good organisations led by now led by the DPA and Digital Unite, Good Things Foundation, all those people all working together. But it's having an interface between that and a good, clean interface between that and government, both in terms of policy and also, very importantly, in terms of service delivery. And I do think that Scotland and Wales are a bit further ahead on that part of the thing than England/UK. Obviously, the scale of the problem in England is 10 times the number of organisations, 10 times the number of councils than there are in Scotland. So it's a much bigger, more complicated thing to do. But nevertheless, it kind of needs to be done.
Yeah. The article does point out that government does remain engaged in activities intended to target digital exclusion, saying that 99% of the UK now has access to a range of social broadband and mobile tariffs, starting from as low as £10 per month. And thanks to their £5 billion Project Gigabit, 77% of the UK is now covered by gigabit broadband, up from just 6% at the start of 2019. They're making sure no one's left behind in the digital age by putting essential digital skills on an equal footing in the adult education system, alongside English and maths, and offering those with limited digital skills the opportunity for free educational training. So we know that things are being done, but like you say, could be better, could improve, and we need to see that strategy so that we know that plans are in hand, and that we can hold the government to account then for what needs to happen. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our stories for today's episode of season 4 of the Dr. Tech Show. Thanks, Sweyn, for putting so much together, and for carrying on. I think we continue to do John Popham proud, and I hope he and his family and friends are happy with the work that we've been doing. We would like to have more guests on for season 4. I'm busy kind of approaching people, including guests we've had on previously. We will have Casper Kennerdale from Clear Community Web on at some stage soon, and somebody from Community Tech Aid, who, as I mentioned earlier. But other guests are very welcome. We want to talk about digital inclusion. We want to hear what the people's actual stories are for coming online, for what their experiences are, and how we can improve things for everybody. So please do approach us with ideas for new guests. Thanks again, and everybody, and we hope you have a good week. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.